questions, which will be very unscripted.
So I think the thing about the Zoom call that we like to highlight initially, at least, is we try to guide as attorneys. We try to guide our clients or our potential clients into the right questions and sort of the right directions that will allow us to kind of get to the important issues as quick as possible. Because the intro call or the first call usually is about 30 minutes. It doesn't end up going much longer than that. So that goes pretty quickly. We're not going to do a whole 30-minute kind of skit right now. That might be a little bit much at 9 o'clock in the morning, but it's a very compressed time frame to try to get all the information, as much of the information as we can, so that we can plan for next steps, whether that's like jumping into a project, letting things sort of marinate and sit around so they can sort of develop and percolate, or just kind of sending that founder, that client off to kind of do their own sort of research by themselves and maybe come back a little later. The latter two, we don't really, don't suggest you take any legal action without coming back to us, but there are times where you don't need necessarily legal services at that immediate moment, and that's what we try to uncover. So yeah, I think it's going to be fun.
And as attorneys, we make our way to a lot of networking events, like the great event held by Startup Boston Week last night. That was terrific, and almost invariably, as soon as we mention that we're attorneys, we'll get some questions, and we kind of veer into those. Hey, I know that we don't have an attorney-client relationship, but what do you think about X, Y, or Z? And of course, we answer that. So we have a very open policy of just being very open and honest when we have those kinds of questions, and we're happy to answer them, but also qualifying that with saying that, this doesn't, we're getting a really, really small snapshot of your issue and who that is. So you're going to get a very pointed answer, and it doesn't constitute legal advice, just like this presentation does not. So. All right. With that, this is the background that you'll see if you're talking to one of us. And so Matt and I are going to sit right here, and we'll go through it. How's it going? Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for making the time for me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, where are you calling from?
I'm from Dorchester, so just a little south of here.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah, my partner Matt at the firm lives in Dorchester.
Oh, nice,
yeah,
nice.
That's cool. Yeah, cool. Do you like it?
Oh yeah, it's good. There's a nice little beach. Malibu Beach actually is a short walk away from our condo. So
oh, very cool.
Yeah, we got LA right on our doorstep. So
nice.
It's really pretty nice.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So tell me about your build. What's going on?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I'm very excited about this. So I guess maybe I should sort of start with a little background. So I work in aerospace. And I do a little bit of software development, stuff like that. And I've come up with this idea for a product that I think it seems really cool, and it's going to fit in the engine and really sort of I'll call it green up sort of emissions and things like that. I think there's a huge amount of potential for that. It's not. I don't think it's in the wheelhouse of what my employer is doing, but I know enough to know that I need to seek out legal representation and make sure I don't cross any kind of guardrails or touch any third rails, on the red line when it's running and things like that. So that's kind of the high level overview.
Okay. Are you still with your employer now?
Yeah, I am. I'm at the ideation phase, I think I would say, for this product. And so I'm still working to try to make a little bit of cash before I make the jump. But I think that's coming pretty soon.
Yeah, it's really common for folks to be working a job and then also start a side hustle or some kind of idea, and they start pulling things together. So we just want to make sure that you're being careful with how you approach the development work and the resources that you're using, because I'm sure you've signed a pretty hefty invention assignment agreement. It's probably buried in your employment paperwork there. So
yeah, I probably signed something. That was years ago. And I know you asked me to kind of bring it, or send it to you, and I haven't yet. So I'm definitely going to do that.
Oh yeah, no problem. It's generally speaking, especially when you're at one of the bigger places. I'm sure they have attorneys, very expensive ones. And so they're going to make you sign all kinds of stuff that's going to assign, intellectual property that you might have been working on. So if you're just a word of caution that we like to tell people that if you are working on stuff during business hours or if you're using any kind of resources, a laptop or something like that, then there is a potential for them to claim that you could actually, owe that intellectual property that you've been working on to that company. So it creates a little bit of a sticky situation, and we want to just make sure people are mindful of that.
Okay.
And then as soon as you leave the company, that contract ends, and you should be okay. But just something to keep in mind.
Gotcha. I don't think it's like, it's definitely not in their wheelhouse now. So I don't think I hope that's not an issue. I don't know.
Well, generally they'll cast a pretty wide net in terms of what they would consider in their wheelhouse. Like
Okay.
they're going to consider pretty much anything you work on, like I said, during work hours or using company resources, or if something is even in the general orbit of aerospace, they might consider that to be an issue. So just.
Gotcha. Okay, well, we'll have to look out for that. Oh, and sorry, to answer your question, I've been pretty good about doing stuff not on company time or company resources and things like that. So hopefully that piece is at least sort of foreclosed upon.
Okay,
I was
great.
really conscious. I've read a couple articles about people getting stuck like that.
Yeah.
And so I was when I came up with this idea, I didn't want to at least do that risk or run into that issue. So I did try to avoid that.
Okay, great. So tell me about your founding team. Is it? Are you working with anybody right now, or is it just you?
No, it's just me at the moment. I've heard that you should never found a company by yourself. So I'm kind of looking around. I've talked to a couple buddies that I work with. They have some sort of lukewarm interest in doing it, but I'm kind of, I guess I'd like somebody to share the load with. It seems to make sense, especially when we're trying to develop something. But I don't know. Right now, it's just me.
Okay, yeah, that's perfectly fine. We see some solar founders, and you're right. It is a lot to do at one time. We just caution people that when you're running a company by yourself, all the risks are sort of external. They're things like market fit, product development, keeping costs down, things like that. But when you bring people onto your team, a lot of that risk becomes internal to the company. So the human dynamic, that kind of somewhat unpredictable element of working with other people and just making sure that everyone's above board. The most significant part of that is just making sure that your stock purchase agreements, if you were to work with us, we'd make sure that you're signing a restricted stock purchase agreement to purchase your shares. And those shares are often tied up in vesting. And so sometimes we'll see the vesting schedule and the number of shares that somebody actually owns outright that are not subject to repurchase by the company. That can get really complicated because if they pass their vesting schedule and then they own their shares, but then they want to leave, it could create a problem just in terms of optics for investors. And you obviously don't want somebody leaving with 5, 10, 15% of the company. So just something to keep in mind, but it doesn't sound like you're at that stage yet.
Yeah, I wouldn't think I'm at this stage. I actually attended a seminar at Startup Boston last year where there was a law firm that spoke about that exact issue. So I'm really trying to be conscious of finding the right people and making sure that that's a good fit. Would you say is it better or worse to go as a solar founder, or should I really be ratcheting up trying to find?
I would say that if you have someone that fits a particular need, for example, if you are not great with technology yourself and you want to hire, say, like a chief technology officer, and he or she's going to be really driving that big push for in-house of intellectual property, or if you're outsourcing it, to make sure that they're overseeing that aspect of it. So I would say whoever has the idea, whoever's leading that charge out of the gate, they are holding most of the cards. And so then anybody who comes in after that, if it's not a simultaneous effort, is really, you're really kind of dictating the terms of that. So I would say that if you're looking for a true co-founder, oftentimes what we'll see is people starting it at the same time. But then when people come afterwards, they have to really be bringing something significant to the table in order to get a sizable equity stake.
Gotcha. I heard that's what Elon did, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he came in after the original founders. But
Seemed
that's
to,
another.
seemed to work out for him.
It did, didn't it?
How are you paying for everything so far? Like, are you fundraising? Are you?
That's why I'm still working. So at the moment, you know, my salary and my savings are sort of what's kind of keeping me going through this I'll call it a development stage. But it's going to be a capital heavy project, right? Like anything in aerospace, anything in, you know, you're naturally going to be dealing with government contracting. So, you know, you have to worry about all that type of stuff. So I'm gonna need money from somebody. So I think, you know, it's not going to come from mom and dad, or maybe it will. It's going to need to come from people who know this industry and want to kind of partner with me.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like a pretty good application of dual use technology. So I imagine you'll probably have like a sizable private sector application for it, and then if you want to get into the government contracting, my partner Matt at the firm does a lot of SBIR, STTR contracting, and making sure that you can navigate that process is pretty complex.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to sort of cast a wide net, and I think, you know, private and public makes a lot of sense.
Great. So with time that we have left, what would you like your next step to be? It seems to me that we would recommend that you set up the company as a traditional Delaware C corporation. There's a variety of tax reasons that are really good for that recommendation, and we offer, in terms of like getting everything ready, what we like to do is we like to get companies to a point where everything is formed, everything is packaged nicely, and then they can start going out into the market. And if they're talking to investors and investors want to see their corporate record, they can take a look at it. And we want to make sure that they're structured in such a way that it makes investors feel very comfortable. And
Okay.
so that looks a certain way. And so usually what we'll do is we'll price that in a flat fee package. It's $3,500 for everything start to finish, and that includes all your emails, all your correspondence back and forth, all your conversations. There's really no limit to the amount of back and forth dialogue that we have, just to make sure people are comfortable. And that includes you and any of your founding team that want to come in. So it sounds like something that you would want to move forward with. We can go ahead with that. And if you want to take some time and consider it too, or wait till maybe you get some more traction, or do some kind of do some kind of market research, that's fine too.
Yeah. Now, I'd really like to get started. I have one quick question. Now, so I have a buddy who's formed a couple LLCs. He does real estate. Mm-hmm. Is that a good entity? Is that a good idea? Or should we stick with the C corporation? I know that's easy for like venture capitalists and things like that, but you know, does one matter for the other? Or?
Yeah, so an LLC is a great entity. It's very simple to set up, very cheap, and they're easy to navigate. The problem with limited liability companies is that it doesn't have the ability to scale just in terms of accepting investment. So if you set up a C corporation, investors like to see that, because that means that no matter how much money you're trying to raise, you won't run into any issues there with the complexities that you would get with a pass-through entity like a limited liability company.
Gotcha.
And there's actually some other kind of corporations too. For example, an S corporation is used sometimes, but there is only one type of stock allowed for S corporations. So a C corporation, you can issue the different types of stock that you would see with a venture financing, like the preferred shares.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And a variety of tax reasons too that we would honestly have to save for another phone call, because they're pretty involved. But just to hit on them real quickly, Section 1202 is a section of the revenue tax code that basically talks about the ability to avoid capital gains tax on shares at exit. So we really want to set the company up to make sure that years and years down the road, you have the ability to have a successful exit, and making sure you're not getting hit on taxes that you don't necessarily have to.
Gotcha. And that other call would be covered in the flat fee, or is that something different?
The what?
Is that next call where we talk about the taxes and 12 whatever?
It could, yeah.
Okay, all right, great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds good. Okay.
Yeah, so anything you wanted about that, we could wrap that all in.
Oh, excellent. All right. It sounds pretty good. Let me marinate on it for a couple days, but I think we'll probably pull the trigger. I like where we're going with this. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Great, thanks. Appreciate it.
get some mid-presentation applause. That was great. So we had so much to talk about just in that short, whatever it was, 12, 15-minute call. And so we hit on a couple of topics that I find really, really important. One of them is just that human element. Who's your founding team? Who you're working with? What kind of industry you're working in? And what is your vision for the product? Like, what do you want to do with this company in a couple of years? And I didn't ask Matt that specifically. That's actually another question that we just didn't have time for. But these are all questions that help me guide the conversation into, like, what kind of entity do we want to set up for this? What are our risk factors? What are we looking to protect? Or do we have to worry about a founding team, or is it, we're just working with Matt? Because if we're just working with Matt, then he can move very quickly, makes decisions fast. If we move with a larger founding team, then the issues that we've got to navigate get more complex very quickly. So there's quite a bit of stuff that we will pull the thread on future conversations, and so we want to make sure that we're at least jotting some notes. But like I'd mentioned with Matt, just in terms of getting the company up and running from perspective of not only making sure it can scale, but that it is favorable to investors if they're interested in that, and also making sure that the company can scale on a level that is much easier than if we were to set it up a different way. So that was just a small recap of what we covered, what we didn't cover, and like I said, it does definitely snowball into quite a few topics. But you'll see with the next presentation that the discussion is going to be much more pointed, and Matt is going to kind of rein me in just a little bit in terms of what he's going to discuss. Okay. Let's see. All right, just a couple of points that one of these we did cover, one of these we didn't. Something that we get asked is, where are you licensed? And we're licensed in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, and New York and Colorado are forthcoming pretty quickly. A lot of the work that we do transcends state borders, and so we're not necessarily hemmed in by that, but that is like a licensure issue. So some issues that are very particular to a certain state we'll have to pass on. Okay. All right. I covered all this. Founding team, vesting, equity control. And one more question I asked Matt was how is he going to pay for things like development work, all the expenses, just in terms of getting the company up and running. And that is also something that allows us to tell how they're going to raise money and what approach they're going to take. And that can be a sticky issue sometimes, as you'll see in the next presentation. Okay. All right. Okay.
That's it?
Yeah, that's good.
All right, so our second little skit here, so we're trying to recreate sort of the ambush isn't really the right word for it, because that sort of implies something negative, but when you're at a networking event and you sort of say you're an attorney, there's just a natural nature to try to ask some questions that are a bit, that are legal in nature, right? Like everybody wants to understand what their legal risks are, or they have some legal question when they're running their business, or anything from day to day. So if you met us downstairs yesterday, you saw the wheel of choice, wheel of chance actually. You could spin it, and you could either end up on a 30-second AMA where we try to answer your question in 30 seconds or less. Socks, water bottles, T-shirts, it's quite a grab bag, and it was a lot of fun, yesterday, and we're going to try to recreate that scene here. So
I think the question is going to be about financing. We'll find out. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Good. So what does Peak do?
Peak. So we're a law firm that focuses on startups. So we try to cover all of the startup needs and offer it in an economical and really strong sort of value add package. We have we operate as a distributed sort of model. We'll have some co-working spaces, but we don't really have a lot of overhead. And so we try to, because we work primarily with startups, we try to keep that really tight, really thin, so that we can pass those savings on to people like yourself. And what do you do?
Oh, very cool. So I am a co-founder for a startup, and we're kind of in stealth mode right now. It's mostly around generative AI, but
Nice.
but we're kind of secret squirrel about it right now. So
Okay.
so what's with the wheel? Can I spin this?
Yeah. So
All right,
it's
cool.
a little self-explanatory. So
Okay.
you can get, you take a chance and see where you end up. You might get a 30-second AMA, and we can talk about that if you land on it,
All right, cool.
or other stuff.
Here I go.
I wish I had music to play, but it's just the annoying tick of the wheel.
Kind of really hoping for the MA. Oh, I think it stopped there.
Oh,
Look at that.
30-second AMA! Congratulations.
I know. I kind of
Hopefully you
wanted
didn't want
socks.
something free.
No, it looks like we're missing a peg there. So, okay, so let me see.
So the way this works is you ask me a question,
Yep.
and I try to answer it in 30 seconds or less. So just nature of that, it's probably going to be fairly high level, but we'll see what we can do. I have to say that there's, that this is informational. This doesn't form an attorney-client relationship, but I'll do the best that I can, sort of within the ethical bounds that we operate under.
Okay, cool. All right. So can I time you?
We'll ask your question first.
All right,
And then we'll.
All right, got it. So, all right. So we're trying to raise money, and I've done a lot of reading about promissory notes, and it seems like everybody uses a safe now.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, what should I go with a safe over a promissory note, and why? So I guess that's two questions.
Gotcha.
But so what is
Oh,
what is
better,
a
you got to
safe?
spin the wheel again.
What is a safe? So what is a safe? What am I getting with that? And I don't understand, like, why should I use those?
Gotcha. So since you asked two questions, I'll try to do it in a minute as opposed to just 30 seconds. So difference between a note and a safe, well, they're both under the same umbrella, right? So the main difference is interest and maturity date. And that's probably the reason a lot of people are moving towards safes. So your notes will have a set time, so usually like, say, 18 months or something like that, and an interest rate. So you'll earn interest on the note, which will then be rolled into the ultimate price when it converts. The safe, which is a very similar document, doesn't have that time bindedness, where you have to worry about the maturity date hitting, and if you haven't raised funds in that time frame, you either have to extend or get your money back. And of course, most people want to extend, but that's administrative work, hassle to track, hassle to keep, hassle to pay your attorney to write an amendment and do it maybe multiple times. So that's probably the big reason. Well, that's the big difference, and probably the reason that a lot of companies are moving to safes. So the safe was created by this founder shop, Y Combinator. But you've probably heard of it. I think it was very, very popular to try to streamline this. And it's there are other flavors or other companies put out safes. You can have your attorney draft one your own, bespoke if you want. But the goal is to standardize this document, make investing super easy. And I don't think I sort of touched on the underlying concept of what the safe is or what the convertible note is. All of these are cash now in exchange for equity in the future. That's what the SAFE actually stands for, Simple Agreement for Future Equity. So it's a very straightforward document. You find an investor who will give you money now, and you'll figure out the share price at some other point in the future. If you have a note, you kind of have to, like I said, you have to figure that out in a shortened time frame. or you have to extend out. If you have a safe, you don't have to. And there's a lot of nuance to that as well. I think I'm over my minute, but
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
so I think I got the crux of the answer in 30 seconds. So
You did,
I think
yeah.
we did well, but yeah. So that's kind of the high level gist of it.
Cool. Do you mind if I keep going? I have more questions.
It's the end of the day, so yeah. Why don't we just keep firing?
Like
Let's see where we get.
You answered it, but now I have more. So I guess we're in stealth mode, but a good friend of mine is connected to an investor. He's out in California, and he's got, I think, like a micro VC shop or something like that.
Yeah.
So they give out pretty small amounts of money, but for this one, he said, I really like your idea. I want to give you $500,000. And so like, that's a lot of money. I think I'm going to take it.
Yep.
So he sent over a term sheet and it looks good. It says, I think we set it at like, I think valuation cap was 500,000 or something like that.
And they're giving you 500,000?
Yeah, he's giving me
Okay.
500,000.
And a
it's like
valuation cap of 500.
Valuation cap of 500,000.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
Let's throw that in the trash.
Okay.
I'm not
why?
your attorney because we don't have an attorney-to-client relationship. But
Yeah.
you need to throw that in the trash. 'Cause
Okay,
you
why?
own nothing of the company.
Is it? No, I mean, it's a lot of money. I kind of need it.
It is. So the way the safe operates is one of the ways the safe can operate is you have a valuation cap, and that's a pre-agreed value of your company. So if your valuation cap and the amount that you're investing in are equal, you're effectively giving up the entire ownership of your company to whoever's investing. So
So I'd have none of my company
you
left?
would effectively have none of your company, yeah.
Okay,
So,
I don't want that.
I would strongly recommend, again, not as your attorney at the moment, we can engage if you would like, but I would strongly recommend that you don't accept that unless you're comfortable not being an owner in your company anymore.
Okay. Yeah, that's really uncomfortable because we had some kind of, I mean, we didn't sign anything yet, but we had kind of this deal where I said, okay, we really need the cash. I went out and I hired a couple of developers. So
Gotcha.
should I not hire them anymore?
You
or
hired him
like-
before you had the money, or you hired
As soon
them
as he
after?
said that we're going to do this, I went out and hired them.
Gotcha. So it's
But they haven't started working yet, so I can.
That's good, yeah. Have you signed
Okay.
anything with them, or is
No,
this just sort of back and napkin
I
stuff?
told them that I would definitely look at maybe giving them some options.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay,
Should I
so
not
you're
have done
you're really getting in there.
Yeah, I just wanted to
okay.
move fast.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
was
I get it.
just
And
excited.
well, and that's the goal of the safe is to move as quickly as possible.
Yeah, okay.
I think you need to sort of try to take a step back. It sounds like you're very excited, you're very eager. Obviously, money is one of the most important things to a startup. Like if you have no runway, you have no company, you have no product. So you obviously need money, but you can't just spend the money you don't have at the moment. And like as we discussed, your ownership stake is going to be at risk here if you accept these terms. And I recommend that you also put a little pause on the developers until you A, sign something with them that protects your IP, and B, until you have the money in the bank. So we've unfortunately seen clients in our practice where they've got a bit ahead of themselves and they ended up in pretty hot water trying to sort of unwind that purchasing in the expectation of receiving money. So
Got it. Okay.
you just want to
Can
be
we-
very careful.
Can I like set up a call with you sometime? Like,
Oh,
you
absolutely.
have like time today or
Yeah,
tomorrow or
so we
something
can go
like
grab coffee after this presentation if
Awesome.
you like.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, excellent.
Cool. So Matt, being the attorney on this skit, is going to run you through the debrief on what we talked about.
All right, so, hey, I'm in slides here too. So, financing is obviously a hugely important part of operating a company. The safe is becoming very popular, has been for a long time. It has supplanted notes. In our practice, I don't think we've seen the past 12, 18 months, I don't think we've seen a note come through from our clients. So the safe really is becoming the go-to document for sort of pre-seed type of funding and way to get cash quick. But there are a lot of pitfalls, right? So we touched on a couple. You just want to be very cautious of using these documents because it's exciting. You have the opportunity to effectively take a check to the bank. But if you do that over and over and over again in very small amounts, and you're not really keeping track of those documents, that can spiral and you can end up diluted a lot more than you expect. Or if you sign, say, one large safe with bad terms or not, disadvantageous terms, you could end up sort of in hot water as well. So like we said, safes are just a way to get cash quick. You get your money. There's a couple different terms that I'll talk about on the next slide. But you get your money. You say at some event in the future, an equity event, so say a priced round, most commonly, we will do a predetermined calculation to come up with the share price, and the share price that we arrive at is going to be then applied to the money that you gave me, and that's the number of shares that this investor will receive. So there's kind of a couple different flavors of these documents. We didn't dive into this in the AMA because you just wouldn't have time to do this. There's pre-money safes and there's post-money safes. This applies to the valuation cap primarily. Pre-money just means pre-valuation. Post-money means post-valuation. There's a couple other terms that I didn't include on the slide, and that's the valuation cap. That's the issue that we ran into with Bob and his company with the generative AI. And then there's a discount rate or a discount. So the valuation cap, if you can run into trouble sort of applying a valuation cap that's a bit sort of short term, short-sighted potentially, especially when it's compared to the amount that an investor is going to invest. So, and then the discount rate or the discount is what sort of discount is the investor going to get from signing up early, so taking this risk, right? Obviously, the investor is sort of jumping into your company when there's a huge amount of risk. It might not pay off, and if the company goes under, the money doesn't come back, right? Like, so what else are they going to get? What other carrot can you offer to the investor to get them to invest in your company? And the discount will be, so say, you get 80 cents on the dollar to purchase shares, so you'll get they'll effectively get, they'll be able to buy shares at 80% off this pre-calculated price, or 80% of the pre-calculated price. Where you run into issues there is that the discount and the discount rate are both terms that are used in safes, and if you interchange them, you can end up either offering your normal, say, 20 to 15% discount on the safe is about standard. But if you flip the terms, you'll be offering them an 80 or an 85% discount. So when you go into a safe, you need to make sure that you're applying the right numbers. If you're using this sort of discount rate, discount calculation, you're applying them correctly because they can get a little convoluted. We like to try to use real-life scenarios, so if you attended our presentation last year, Rainbow Road was the company that had a founder that had vested shares and then wanted to leave, so there was a lot of effort that had to go into helping reduce that sort of dead cap table burden. In this instance, though, Mario is now without his other founders, and like Bob, he's looking to invest in, or looking to get investment for his idea. And what they settled on with Toad, who is his angel investor, is an investment of $200,000 with a $1 million valuation cap. So that ultimately you sort of, a good generalization is you sort of apply, the investment amount to the valuation cap. And so that's about 20% of the company, right? Sort of at the outset, at the early stages. And that's not necessarily bad, but it could pose issues kind of down the road, right? So if another investor comes in, your priced round is taking 10%, 10 or 15%, you're already losing a good chunk of your ownership stake. So there are issues there that you got to be very conscious of. And then if you've accepted a number of small safes sort of throughout the life cycle of your company, those will stack up as well to this large amount, and you might find yourself diluted a lot more than you really want it to be. Like I said, you're going to lose, you're not lose, but you'll be giving up a percentage early. So managing your cap tables can be highly important going forward. And that's another sort of problem with the SAFE is you don't, because it's a kick the can down the road sort of document, founders tend to not look at their cap table or not look at a permutation. It's not even, it's not that easy to do. But they don't see this until there's a funding round, and then by that time it's a little too late to sort of stop it. So you really got to be conscious of your cap table, and you can work with your attorneys to manage that and speak with them as well. Other ways that, say, Bob and Mario could try to avoid this or lessen sort of the impact. So if you increase your valuation cap, generally speaking, you're going to bump down the ownership percentage of any amount invested. You could, push for a lower amount. Understanding that all these are not, they don't operate in a vacuum, right? So, like I said, people need money. So these are potential choices. You could seek to split up, this large chunk, see if there's multiple investors that want to sort of do this. This doesn't solve your issue with the overall ownership percentage, but it does at least reduce the amount of ownership that an individual would have and can consolidate. And then just manage your cap table. All right, so that kind of takes us to sort of the end of our skits. We're not going to do another skit, I promise. But the things we kind of wanted you all to kind of take away from this conversation, being, the title is managing your attorney consultations, is, always be honest. Always come to the table with your attorney. There's a reason, that there's a confidentiality, attorney-client protections. Because if you're forthright, if you're, as long as you're straightforward, especially in the corporate world, a lot of stuff can be corrected. Most things aren't fatal. So if you just tell us what's going on with the company, oftentimes we can work with you to fix it and correct it, at least mitigate the damage, right? Be as comprehensive as possible. So like in our talk, in our first talk, I didn't have my NDA. I could have brought that earlier. If you get all the documents or all the information up front, then that's less chasing. But a lot of attorneys bill by the hour, and we do also on certain projects. So if you don't have your stuff and you have one call, and then you have to have another call, then you have to have a third call, or maybe a doc review because you're kind of worried, haven't got your stuff together, it can add up for you and kind of impact you. Don't be afraid of mistakes, like I said.
Yeah, I'll take the last couple. So a couple more here are, we're really ethics bound, not just professionally, but also just in terms of who we work with. We'll ask some questions that are very pointed to kind of find out what it is someone is asking us to do. And those are designed to make sure that nobody's looking for something that's outside the bounds of the law or outside the bounds of the ethical constraints that not only we're subjected to, but the ones that we subject or we put on ourselves. And so we'll ask those. They're very subtle, but oftentimes it'll revolve around representation, like who we're actually representing. One of the big ones is conflicts. Like if we get two people who come to us with an issue that they're trying to resolve, we can't necessarily represent both of those people. Sometimes we can, but that's just one of those things that we've got to be mindful of. Relationships are huge with all this kind of stuff. It's we work our founders' hours. We keep up with our founders' hours, and a lot of times those hours aren't good. So if they're emailing us or texting us on a weekend, they're always going to get a response. But in order to get that, it basically means that we've got to be respectful of each other's time and consideration, and just making sure that we're putting everything into it, and just a lot of patience. Legal work is very complicated sometimes, and so we just ask for folks to, if a project is really big, just work with us, just be patient with us, and we'll be patient with them, and just makes everything easier. And here's how you can connect with us. Our emails are really simple. There's a QR code there if you want to bring it up to our website. And email is the best way. We're also on Instagram, LinkedIn, and if you call a number or you email us, you'll always get a response back from either Matt and I. Okay, and I promised the tech team I would return their microphones for questions. So I'm going to go do that. Just open up to any questions you might have about the presentation or just
I have a question.
generally. Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
So my name's Dan. I'm clearly one of the volunteers here. And the thing about working with attorneys that both scares me and excites me is I don't know what I don't know. And so sometimes I don't know what I don't know, so I don't seek out an attorney or finding a new attorney. And I also don't know what I don't know, so I've paid for attorneys not knowing what I'm gonna go get. So can you help give some advice as to, what are some things that I should be really considering as I start and grow my business that are kind of hallmarks of I should really talk to a lawyer?
Yeah, we have three kind of milestones that are really easy to recognize. And one of them is, are you working with just by yourself, or are you working with other people? Anytime that you're working with another person, co-founder, whatever, we always recommend to bring an attorney involved because we'll know the kind of questions to ask. And it's always better to have an attorney ask those kinds of questions instead of asking the other co-founder yourself because it makes it less awkward. Another is if you are raising capital or generating revenue, so anytime money comes into the picture, that's really important too because that means things are happening. It means you've either got a product that's really working well or you're dealing with investors, which is kind of an obvious one, but still worth mentioning. The third, which is a little less obvious, is if you've got something to protect. And most of the time, that's going to be intellectual property. But it could be a design if you're manufacturing something like with Matt's company in aerospace, that could be a part, a widget that goes into an aircraft. And so if you feel like you have something and you feel like there's value there, and you're like, oh, it seems like other people might want this or might have a claim to this. Even just like bringing it to us and saying like, hey, I designed this, but I designed it on company time. Do I have a problem? And sometimes the answer is yes, and oftentimes the answer is no, but that's just worth checking out. So any one of those three things, people, money, something to protect, usually IP, we recommend coming. And then, others are, if you get a cease and desist letter from like a major credit card company, that's like something that's really obvious. So like if you get, an outside letter from somebody saying like, hey, you're doing something that we want you to stop, that's something worth mentioning too. We actually had that happen to a client of ours, so just thought I'd throw that out there.
I would also say it takes more time to fix mistakes, or even if they are mistakes, if you just the amount of time that's lapsed before you've done something, it's almost, I'll say it's always better. I'll be definitive. It's always better if you at least check in with your legal representation on one of these issues, as opposed to calling 18 months later because something's happened and you didn't have time to get it. And we understand that you always have a choice, or you have a tough choice to make between, say, spending money on legal fees or spending money on dev work. But if there's a major issue, it's always better to identify it up front, and you would do that with your attorney. It's hands down.
So, is there an area where you guys? Okay. Is there an area of startups where you guys focus on or try to lend your expertise towards in a particular area or type of startup?
I'd say we're pretty industry agnostic at the moment. There are certain industries that we're not into, which is, I'd say, primarily like the really big ticket ones, pharmaceuticals, and a lot of biotech stuff. We don't handle those. I think those clients tend to go to the much bigger firms just because they have a variety of very heavy lift things. But we're really into just all kinds of stuff. Like AI is very, it kind of crosses a bunch of different companies for us. Some of them are like the travel tech, fitness tech, or just general fitness. A lot of it is dual use application, and so we have a kind of an unusually high number of folks who are working on something that has like both a military government application and the private sector. So quite a few of those, but yeah, it's a pretty good variety. So,
Okay, thank you.
and some manufacturing as well.
Hi, so my name's Ivy Blossom. I formed my LLC under LegalZoom, and I switched to you guys a few months ago. Matt, I owe you an email, sorry. But I just wanted to say that I've been really happy with the change. As my life and my business grew, I needed to make some changes to my LLC, and it was impossible to contact anybody to help me that through LegalZoom. It was super frustrating. I switched to you, and I had a delightful experience. I have no regrets. It was a great return on investment of both my time and my money. You actually found some problems in my LLC paperwork from LegalZoom that you fixed. Your response time has been phenomenal. Your patience with my response time has been phenomenal. And I really appreciate how transparent your pricing is. I didn't really feel like that with LegalZoom. And so I probably seem like a plant right now, but I promise I'm not. But I just wanted to echo that my experience has been very genuinely what you all represented here. So thank you so much for fixing a lot of the problems that I created for myself early on.
Thank you, Ivy. Appreciate it. Happy to work with you.
Two quick questions. Why the name? How'd you come up with Peak Counsel for your firm's name?
We love mountains.
You love mountains. Yeah, I saw the mountains. I was wondering if you climb.
Yeah.
The second question, it was mentioned that one of the problems you can run into with a safe is if you have multiple safes and then someone else comes in after, and then that dilutes your ownership. Couldn't you have a master safe where that already accounts for subsequent investors that participate in a single safe?
You could, and sometimes we'll see stuff structured like that. I think one of the issues with it is the individuality. Maybe I'll use that word of investors and the funds that they represent. And so more and more we're seeing varied safe terms, and so companies will try to stick with one set of terms, but then investors will say, well, I want something better. As long as they're not doing too many most favored nations, we're okay, but we'll see those too, and then the MFN clauses, everything in their orbit that's a much better term gets wrapped into those, and so that's really just it, is they are individualized. It would be better if they could streamline it and have like a master safe, but how a lot of them are written is they're able to be like amended by the majority of the holders, and so sometimes we'll see one or two investors which control, so to speak, all of the safes, but yeah, they're difficult to get streamlined.
I think one of the problems with sort of the representations of the safe is just how easy it is, right? So you can go to ycombinator.com, print it off yourself, populate one or two instances, and you have a safe ready to go. And for the finance conscious founder, that might seem like a good, but if you've done, so we've had some clients that have had upwards of 30 safes before they came to us, and they were generally small dollar, but they were varying terms. So because I think that, there is a idea out there, it's a double-edged sword, right? It's quick, it's easy, but it's quick and it's easy. And so if you aren't cautious, if you don't have sort of the patience to kind of look back and make sure that you're looking at your overall strategy, just whether you might not even know, right? Like that's a lot of the issues that we kind of come across as well, is that these aren't there's no class in college or high school about how to start a company, right? And there's all these millions of different decisions you have to make that are going to impact what your company looks like in 5 or 10 years. And hard, but coming to someone like us, or really trying to be long-term with your strategy and pragmatic will help you in the long run. But it's very tempting to execute something quick without really even thinking about it. And that's kind of where you get in hot water, because it builds and builds and builds, or can build and build and build.
I have a question. I've used small firms, big firms, 1,000+ attorney firms in my previous company that I exited in March. Everybody at a startup conference is all exciting, but the flip side of attorney-client privileges or attorneys is having litigation. Do you guys have any litigators in your practice? Have you guys ever been in the courtroom litigated any of these issues? So I'll answer the last question first. I have been in court. Wouldn't recommend it by any stretch. Yeah, it's we did win, but it is. We do our best to keep issues out of the courtroom. So no, we don't have litigators on our team, although we work closely with folks who do that kind of work, and that's sort of in our long-term strategy. We know that we're going to have to add that practice. But it is interesting how those two sides almost never mix. There's like a line that you cross where it's like, okay, now we know we're going to court, and it's like everything changes. It's almost like the transactional folks sort of move out of the picture, and the trial folks move in, and we're seeing less and less of it. The issues that we're seeing that actually go to trial, none of our clients, I don't think, unless they were already in court. But none of our clients have actually made it there. So there's a lot threatened, but it almost always stops short of that, just because of the multitude of ways you can keep yourself out of court, and it's so much cheaper and better. But yeah, good point. Like if you're really facing down a tough issue and you know it's going to get litigated, then you've got to go to a trial.
So you will work with other firms, with other litigators as a combined effort, if that ever came to the case?
Yeah, well, on like a referral basis, we'll make sure that people are set up and we know who to talk to make sure that they're in good hands. But even then, after we refer, typically the issue will just fizzle out, and people say, it's just not worth, just because the costs are so high. A firm like ours, we're not litigating, in the tens of millions. Like we don't have those issues where it's like that is going to be a problem. So like I mentioned before, how we're not going to be representing the sort of like 1,000+ employee companies, and so those dollar figures are the ones that make it worth litigating. And anything else, most startups, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth going down that road. You'd have to be talking about a significant sum of money to make it worth it.
Hi, I have two questions. The first one is about maybe things you don't do. You mentioned biotech. Are there other types of law, like franchising, that you don't do? Also, have you any integrated AI into your practice? I'd like to know.
I'm sorry. I thought I cut you off. You done?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. We do a little franchising, actually. We're working with a client right now on franchising out his company. So it's work that we have done, and I don't believe we have generative AI in our practice.
Although we've used software in the past that I think they claimed they used some kind of document review. Anything that you would normally see an associate at a big firm doing, we're either doing ourselves or we use technology to streamline that. So, but a lot of the work is just kind of managing projects, and we're not dealing with the kind of volume, just in terms of like documents. Like I said, we're not a firm that you would use to like take a company public, for example. And so if you were to have an initial public offering, that's like, just volumes and volumes of paperwork that you might, if you're a big firm, you should be using AI software to make sure you're doing document review. But even having used it, it was pretty expensive, and it wasn't 100%. And so we were still finding mistakes, having used that. So the market out there for AI legal software is getting better, but it's not there yet, unfortunately. So, and you can't really blame a mistake on the AI. You have to own it.
We have time for one more question, or are we out?
What's that?
We done?
Yep, I think so.
Thank you all for coming. We're going to stick around, so if we didn't get to your question, feel free to come up to us. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Matt, and thank you so much, Bro, for your insightful session over here. And thank you everyone again for your time and your presence over here. And we have a lot more in store for both today and the rest of the week. And we also have our keynote with Yon Ho, Secretary of Economic Development, and Boston Globe's Scott Krisner, right here at 6 p.m. at Suffolk University today. Now in this room specifically, the next session, Show Me the Money Decoding Startup Funding is going to start in the next 15 minutes. And if you're not what you're looking for, you'll need to change your rooms, and our folks at the registration desk over there help you